Hi, I'm Coach Begley. This is Coach Candace. We're going to do some drills for you from EHS Throws Camp in 2016 to give you an idea of what some of the drills are that you can do at home to help better your shot put and discus throws. Drill you can do, we called it 4-4-4 at camp. Sometimes we call it 10-10-10. It just depends on how many you want to do with each one. So the first place that you're at, you're working on keeping your elbow up and keeping your chest up. You just have your feet shoulder length apart, bend back as far as you can, and you're trying to project your hips upward to throw your shot put as far as or as high as you can. Okay, so that's the first position. You can do like 4, 5, 10 of those, however many you want. The second position, you're facing the wall still, and all you're turning is your hips. So I have my left arm out, that's my block arm, my elbow's still high, and I'm bending back as far as I can without moving my legs, keeping my toes pointing forward. So here, and bending back, again I'm trying to project upwards, and to get my shot put nice and high. So you would do 4, 5, 10, whatever your number is of that one. The third position, your feet are staggered, where your left foot is forward if you're throwing right-handed, and you're just turning all the way backwards, so your toes are facing the back, and then they go from the back to the front, and it's just a drop, so it's not a hard throw. So that one's a little bit less powerful, but it's more about staying on a line. So if you stay on a straight line, it's a lot easier. So I'm straight back. It's a little bend, it's not a full throw. Try to stay on the line, drop off. So that's something you can warm up with your outdoor shot or your indoor shot. And you just pick how many you want to do of each one, but do the same amount for each of the three. Practice your power position is using something like a 5-pound weight or anything that has some sort of weight. Maybe a little bit less than the shot put, which for middle school, high school girls is 8.8 pounds, and for high school boys is 12 pounds, but in middle school is that same 8.8. So this is a 5-pound weight. Probably wouldn't want to do it with a 10-pound, it might be a little much, but I'm just going to hold it like I would a shot put, so I can practice my elbow being up, and I'm just going to go through the motions of the power throw. So I'm turning my right foot, keeping my left arm over my block arm, and pushing through, punching. So my left arm goes through the air, kind of clears the air. You can look at our watch on our wrist, bring it around, and open your chest up, that Superman open that we talked about at camp. So I'm here with my weight, face forward so you can see it, turning my foot, pretending this is a shot put, pushing it through. You don't actually have to have a shot put to be able to do this throw. You're just using a 5-pound dumbbell. The angle, keeping all this back, push through. And I can do a couple of those. It's really good to do in front of a mirror, full-size body mirror, or a mirror on the wall, so you can see where you finish. This should be about a 45-degree angle. So if I put my left arm over and drop my right one over top of that, that's about the angle that I should be at. To simulate the middle of the ring, that foot turn, you can use a chair or a fence or a rail or even a partner's hands. They can hold onto your hands, or you just hop up, and as soon as you land, that right foot should be what turns first. The purpose for the chair, rail, fence, whatever you're holding on to, is to keep your upper body from your waist up back, and then your lower body turning to get your knee from the back of the ring all the way to the front. So notice how my arms are staying back. That's the goal by grabbing onto something. So just have a little pop, turn. So we call these pop turns. Pop, turn. So my left foot has to go with it, but my right foot is the main thing, the initiator of going from the back of the ring, my toes facing backwards, all the way to the front. Okay, if I can hold this position for about 3 or 4 seconds, that'll remind my body how to get that arch in my back and get my toe all the way around. I have to take some breaks in between, especially if you're trying to hold it for 3 or 4 seconds, because it can get kind of tedious after that. You just do hold on, something here or down here, pop up, turn all the way around. Start over, do 4 or 5 of them, take a break, do a couple sets of those, and that'll help you with the middle of the ring. Something you can do to work on lifting your hips, because your hips should be up underneath your body, to get that backwards C arch of your back, is to put your foot on a toe board. If you don't have a toe board, you can also do it where you're up a slight hill, so that you have that incline. You're still going to turn your right foot, this is if I'm right-handed throwing, where my knee and my toe are, my knee's a little bit over my toe. When I turn my foot, I'm going to lift up, and I have to push upwards so that I can step over the toe board. Okay, now obviously we can't step over the toe board when we throw for real, but in this drill it's to lift up and to get that simulation of how your hips should be lifting when you finish. Right? So you start with your left foot on the toe board, about the ball of your foot, turn your right foot as your first motion, step up, and push over. To To simulate when you come out of the back for the glide, your hips should sink downward. So you can find something like a mat like this or into a mattress. And it's real gentle. You don't want to go full force because you don't want to miss the wall or the mattress or whatever you're falling into. You could also do a fence. I'm pulling my left leg in such as I would out of the back of the ring, and I'm just sinking my hips downward. This is the motion that will happen if we were gliding, where we come up, and we sink, and we kick back. Okay, so I can pull myself off a little bit and kick back to the wall. My right foot comes up because my hips are sinking, and that next step I would pull underneath, which is where we're at in the ring. So this drill is just to simulate that hip drop. So I come in and sink. It's kind of a decline motion, because when I hit in the middle, that's when I'll be raising and doing that airplane incline. Right, so I don't need to finish that out for this drill. I can, if I want to. In other situations, I could do my power throw and come up to the wall so that I'm standing and pushing up underneath my body. But for this particular one, we're just pulling in and sinking. I can pull off a little bit so I can see my right foot pull up. A couple more. I pull away. I want to make sure I'm a length where I can reach so I don't hurt myself. Kick back, and I can see that right leg pull. That's going to come right underneath my body. So for gliders, before you do full glides, something that you can practice is glide stops, and that helps you practice getting your right foot over the middle of the toe board. Most rings, or I'm sorry, over the middle of the ring. Most rings have a line that goes through the middle so you can kind of see where that halfway point is. So I usually start about a foot off for a lot of our younger athletes, about a foot off of the back of the ring. So that's my distance. I'm on the ball of my foot, and my goal is to get my right foot across the line. So I'm going to do a couple where I just step back as far as I can and pull my foot underneath me without moving my top half. So this is kind of a big step back and then a pull under. We call them pull unders. So I'm taking the biggest step back that I can and pulling that foot right underneath me. My goal is to get it on the other side of the line, so I missed it a little bit that time. Okay, so if I do it again, but this time I'm moving when I do it, I'm going to bring that left foot in. This is the glide that we worked on. Knee it up with the back of your other knee and kick backwards. I don't kick up. I keep it as low to the ground as I can. It's a very quick put down. So I'm going to do a couple of these just to practice that push back and the kick backwards. And then I can actually glide to get that foot across the middle line. Okay, sometimes it's hard to get across the middle, so that's what this is for, is practicing moving from towards the back of the ring onto the top front half before your power throw. Okay, you can see that my arms are closed, my shoulders are closed, my left block arm is shutting down on the left side so that I'm not wide open like this and have my hips turned. Everything is still facing backwards. Adding on to that step back, pull under, step back towards the toe board, pull under as far underneath your body as you can, and walk yourself through your power throw to this position. Okay, you don't need to follow through, it's just to see your left arm being straight out and blocked, and your right arm, your elbow up, and a nice big C with the back of her body, you can see that, up underneath. Another drill that can help you to keep from being open in the middle, so keeping your body nice and closed, is having a partner hold on to a stick, such as we are, a towel, a t-shirt, something that can kind of pull your upper body back. You could also tie a rope or something to a fence so that you could hold on to that, but you need to make sure it has some slack, okay, that it's not too tight to move you. The idea is so that, as you can see in her shoulders and her hips, they're nice and close together and they're not open. If she were open, so show us an example of that. Yeah, in the middle. She would have already pulled her body up and her hips would already be turned before she hits the middle, as opposed to if we're practicing with the pull when she hits the middle. So we'll see the right way now, where everything is as close as possible and facing backwards until she absolutely has to let go of that pull, towel, or t-shirt. For rotational shot, instead of working on glide stops because you're not gliding, your movement would be to do wheels, similar to what you do in the discus that we'll be doing in some other videos. So if I'm doing a wheel to practice rotational shot, I'm holding my elbow up a little higher than I would in glide, just because it naturally will fall as I start to move. So my weight is on my right leg. If I'm throwing right-handed, left-handed, everything would be opposite. Okay, I like to point my toe a little bit, if that's 12 o'clock, towards that 10 o'clock over there. So my weight's on my right foot. I'm pulling my left knee in like I'm squeezing a lemon, but behind me to turn me around to get into my power position. So my eyes are up, my chest is up, and now I'm in my power position. You do a couple of those without actually throwing it through. So I should be able to do that and actually reverse and put myself back in the same position. You can do this with a shot put or without one. For discus or shot put, this is a great drill to get yourself moving through the middle. Especially with shot, it's harder for rotational because the shot is a lot heavier than that discus. So this is a great thing to practice with even the dumbbell, a canned good, something, a tennis shoe, anything where you're holding something up here where it's got just a little bit of weight. So I can do it with the dumbbell and turn. The biggest thing for this one is people have a hard time not swinging your left leg around. Your left leg isn't moving you, your right leg is. So you should be on the ball of your foot, nice squish onto the ground, and that's what's swinging you around. And now you're in that power position that we practiced before with our drills that let us allowing our body to get underneath. Shot put coming out of the back, a drill that you can do for this, as well as the complete rotation in the discus, is to have your knees bent and work on your turns. So even if you don't have a ring, you could pick somewhere on the ground where there's a line, and that could pretend to be the back of the ring, and you're working on shifting your weight to your left side, because that's where you're going to be coming out of the back. So if I'm here, I'm just shifting to the left. I haven't raised my feet up off the ground at all. I'm stepping back here, bending a little bit, and shifting. Okay, so I'm just practicing that. Seems pretty simple, but that's a motion that we want our body to know immediately when we're rotating out of the back in discus or in shot. So I'm gonna scoot over a little bit just so I have some room away from my ring. So I was bending down here and I shift. I wanna be able to do a quarter turn. So a quarter is about a fourth of a circle. So I'm here, shift, quarter turn. So I can do a bunch of these. We'll be doing these at camp. Then I'm gonna move on and try and do half turns. So again, I sit, shift, I'm trying to go half the way. Come back, reset, sit, shift, half the way. When my left foot hits about 9 o'clock on the clock, we're doing our numbers, that's when I'll be coming out of the back to go to mid. That's another position I can practice. So again, I'm using this line as the back of my ring, sitting, shifting, going to about 9 o'clock. I haven't lifted up my right leg yet, and I'm driving to the middle. So I can do a bunch of these. This is the best drill for rotational to practice out of the back. Shift, 9 o'clock, to the middle. It's like a sprint through. Your hip comes through. It's almost kind of like a lunge. You're driving that toe forward. So this is a great drill to do, especially for first time rotational. Drift through. And then I'm to that wheel that we have the other drill for, and I can finish it out. So those are the 3 spots. Okay. When holding the discus, what we want to focus on is having our fingers spread. Our pointer finger right here can come up through the middle. That lines it up for us. Our thumb is just there for support. Our other fingers are right over that lip of it. Okay, that little bend in the top of your finger. So you can practice just holding it. Okay, you saw throwing it up in the air a little bit. Another great drill to do before practice or before any competition, or even just at home when you're trying to go through stuff, is to bowl. So it's that same idea as bowling where you're laying it down on the ground, but it forces you to push it off off that pointer finger straight forward. Okay, so I just take a nice little step out and lay it down on the ground. I'm not throwing it down the alley, just laying it on the ground so I can try and get it nice and straight. You can do it against the wall like you saw there, or with a partner, and they could roll it back to you. So this is just a nice little step out. It's called bowling, and you're forcing it to come off that pointer finger. That can help you with that grip along with bowling. This is another exercise you can do at the beginning of every practice. This is also something good to do in line when you're waiting to throw. You just can't do it very high in the air, but just a small here, push off of your hand and catch it with your left. Okay, I don't try to throw it way up in the air. Okay, I'm not trying to juggle it by any means. Just real close to my body so that I can practice pushing it off. It's a good reminder for your body before you get in the ring to throw of how it should release off that pointer finger. So you can kind of see from this angle, I'm just pushing it off that front finger. Okay, my other fingers are just there to support. You can see that squeeze out, but my thumb's not really doing much besides stabilizing it. So for the discus throw, something we need to focus on is that right arm being up and back. Of course, if we're left-handed, it's going to be opposite. You can think of setting your item up on a shelf. You'll notice that Candace is using a wiffle ball. You can use anything. It doesn't have to be a discus. Cones like we did at camp, a tennis shoe, a taped up towel, something so that you can just throw that item, especially if you're somewhere where you don't want to break anything. A wiffle ball is a great idea for that. Okay, it doesn't bounce, it'll just land where you have it at. So you notice her left arm is out and being a block arm lined up with her body, sort of like an L, kind of an extended L if you can get your right arm back as far as she has it. Her front knee is bent the same way that it is in shot put, and that'll be that first turn. So as she goes to turn her right foot, everything's staying back as long as possible, especially that right arm, so that she can slingshot it forward. Once she's lined up at that spot, with her arm being in that straight line with her hip, you can release. Okay, again, a tennis shoe, a cone, anything that'll give you just a little bit of weight, since a discus is about 2 pounds, 2.2 pounds for middle school and high school girls, moves up for boys to that 4 kilogram. Anything that has some weight is going to be helpful for you to get that position. So let's do it one more time so we can see it with the release. This is again a small wiffle ball, really has no weight, but just something to hold on to. She's putting her right arm back as far as she can, her body naturally lifts, and release, has that follow through with her right arm. Notice that her left arm is up there as a block arm, kind of pulls that elbow back the same way we do in shot put. This is what we call the walking pivots. So these will help you with getting your hips lined up through the discus ring. So you take a step forward with your right foot, as you can see her right foot is forward. Step forward, you turn, pivot on your feet. She's still on that straight line, she just picked a line on the ground. Take a step back with her left foot. Okay, see there's a little bend in her right leg, and then she's gonna pivot again, and that's kind of to simulate that finish. So after you've done this a few times, she's just gonna walk through a couple times with it. You can use a pole, she just has a wooden dowel rod, a broomstick, anything to help keep your arms up in that discus position. Something a little longer would be ideal, especially if you have some longer arms so that you can stretch them out. She's just taking that lunge backwards, starting to get a little bit more comfortable with it. So you can see that her body's getting underneath her. So the bigger the step, you don't want it to be huge, but if your knees are bent, it lets you do that decline incline motion of what you would be doing in the discus ring. For the discus movement through the middle of the ring, you don't have to be in a ring, it can be in any space. Okay, a straight line is great. You'll notice we have a little line going through the middle of that ring. She's got her right arm back there on a shelf. I know our concern is that the discus is gonna fall, but in most situations we're not holding it there, and she's only holding to show you the example. Okay, she'll start to bend that right knee. That's what's gonna move her around that right foot. She squeezes her left leg back to her other knee. That'll help move her around to get into that power position. This is called a wheel. Okay, so let's go ahead and see the wheel. Her right foot is what's moving her, and now she's in that power position, back to where her left arm is out, making that L, trying to keep her right arm back as far as she can. Even without a discus, she could do this drill with a 5-pound weight and just not throw it, a tennis shoe, a cone, which is a little harder to keep up, but good practice for that extra weight. She's gonna do it here without anything in her hand. Right knee's bent forward, that's where her weight's at. That'll be her initiator to get her around. Putting that foot down. Now you should be able to do this multiple times, so Candace can go in all directions and continue that wheel, and she's back where she started. Okay, it's like almost like a 180 turn. Her left leg is just along for the ride. If we were doing it with the opposite arm, it would be vice versa with our feet. But her right foot is the one that's turning her. She could truly do it without her left leg. It would just be a little hard to balance, but she doesn't need it there, besides just to get it around to move to that next position of power throwing. This drill is called the South African. Many people use this to get themselves ready for competition after they do powers and wheels. Obviously in a discus ring you won't have that toe board off to the side, and your ring will be about a foot larger in diameter. So you have a little bit more space. But she's starting with her left foot forward. This is going to allow her to sprint and drive her right knee through the middle to go into that wheel that we just went over. So she's putting some weight, driving through, and getting herself in the power position. Even without coming around and releasing, she can do that multiple times to practice that sprint through the middle. So let's do that again. You can also start a little bit closer to the middle if you like, to have it more of a straight on sprint, okay, where she's coming a little bit closer into the ring. It's kind of a comfort thing for you. If you're driving that right knee through to quickly get yourself through the wheel and into the power position. So really for the discus, it's more like 4 kind of progressions backwards. Okay, we did the power throw first, the wheel, we're doing the South African, and then we'll move to the back. All while doing this, her arms are up. You can also do this with the pole as we saw earlier. Something to keep those arms up is going to be helpful for you. Driving through, this is the South African. If she were to actually throw the discus from this position, she would just do that right foot turn, finish it out, and release. Okay, in slow motion or in full throw. This position is coming out of the back of the ring. This is where you can practice those quarter turns on any your back, where you're shifting your weight to the left and rotating around. You can do these taps to practice that weight shift, since that's the shift that you'll be doing to come out of the back of the ring. So if I'm here, like this is my back, my line up here, when my foot, I shift, my foot gets to that 9 o'clock on my clock, that's when I'm going to draw it up to the middle, and that simulates that South African movement. Okay, so if I'm here, towards the back of the ring, I like to use my entire ring and discus, bring my arms back with one wind, arm back. I don't plan on throwing it, so I just have it gripped so that I can do this. Okay, sometimes you can use something to kind of attach the discus to you, or if you're using a shoe or whatever, just grip onto it. So I do a wind back as far back as I can go, my body nice and flexible with it. Move back, shift. When my left foot turns and hits that 9 o'clock, I go into my South African movement, into my wheel and my power position. So just practicing the positions is what's going to get you more comfortable with it without actually throwing. Okay, after you've done it multiple times, that's when it's time for you to move on to throwing. The entire time, even though I'm rotating through, I'm staying on a straight line. So it's a great idea on concrete to take a piece of chalk or a piece of tape here on this wood or on my floor so that I can stay along that line. So if you watch my feet, even though I'm rotating around that line like it's an axis, my goal is to move and sprint through the ring. So back, foot goes to 9 o'clock, move on, here's my wheel, power. Okay, straight line all the way through. So look for yourself a nice line to use. We also think of it as a backwards 7, and my feet are making that 7, and then I'm moving in this backwards pattern to get into that power position. So some people like to draw 7 with some chalk or marking with tape so that they can see those positions for when they're throwing the discus fully through the